Amy Zoellers.
Angela Eureka Smith.
Hey, do you know about our guest? I know we're starting the show. We're starting the show. Oh, this is going to be a great show. I can't even tell. Anyways, we're starting the show. I will enunciate a little bit differently. I know everybody's like, where did that amazing music go that we love so much? Just wait a second. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming guest. She once lost a giant slug made of broken pieces of glass. This is true. This is not one of these is false. Right. This is true. It was coming out of an old wooden box, and she does not know where it is now at this point.
Mysterious.
She believes that the ingenuity of humans will prevail even when everything else goes dire. So she's a little bit, because that's crazier than the slug. Oh, right. Optimistic is what we call that.
Some of us would want us to prevail, but
This is why we work so good together, because I'm like, we're all going to die. It's going to be terrible. And Amy's like, or we'll have a good life until then.
It's cool. We'll have some soda pop and what have you.
Yeah. Well, the last thing about our next guest is she wrote a collection called The Lore of Inscrutable Dreams.
Oh, that's a fantastic title.
I love that title.
I would take it.
Mm-hmm. We're going to celebrate Poetry Month with her.
Yes. Happy
Day one.
Poetry Month. Day one. Right
All
on.
right. So now we'll kick on that music that I know everybody is so like, stop biting your nails. It's coming. Mm-hmm. It's okay. We'll play the music.
Here it comes.
Launch sequence activated. This is not the drill.
Welcome, Colleen Anderson, president of the Science Fiction Poetry Association, who apparently found the slug. Are we sure that's the same slug, though?
It turned plushy, though.
Oh,
it's my rainforest slug. These react well. We have something like this in BC in the rainforest. It's called a banana slug. They're not plushy, and this is anatomically incorrect because their eyes are on little stalks like this, so they actually have a core in them.
Oh,
but
cool.
I was at a retreat, so a writing retreat. So this was my mascot that I bought down there.
Okay, well, my first question is now, forget all the other questions that I asked that are intelligent. What's up with slugs?
Well, when I did Clarion, the Clarion West Writers Workshop, a million years ago, we had such wonderful instructors as Connie Willis, Octavia Butler, Ursula Gwynn, Samuel Delaney, Tappan King, and Ed Bryant. And for some reason, every week you'd have a different instructor, but for some reason, it became a theme that each instructor talked about slugs. And Octavia Butler had a phobia of slugs. She had found one, and she lived in California somewhere, San Francisco. And I guess she found one climbing up the wall of her bathroom, and it completely freaked her out, like I used to be with spiders. So I don't know. I've not written a slug story. I've written various bug stories and poems and nematodes, tardigrades, but I have not yet written an oozy slug story. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I have to add this in. I was at one of the British Fantasy Cons in Scarborough about 5 years ago. And we're walking back to the hotel, and you have to walk kind of around because these are old Victorian hotels. They're super, super tall, face the beach. And so there was like 100 steps or a ramp. And I live on a busy street, so there's sirens. And you have to kind of like do this ramp around. And as we came up on the ramp, there was this spot with like 100 slugs just like oozing and sliming all over the sidewalk. I don't know. We'd just been to the Thriller theme building, so maybe it had something to do with that. Anyways, yeah, slugs. I could go on. I
don't know.
My brother used to torture them, so.
They want revenge. Oh no.
That's funny because I don't really know how I feel about slugs right now. Like I used to be terrified of spiders. Love spiders now. Slugs are still like that gray area. I've never murdered one, but I flushed them down the toilet because I'm pretty convinced there's a happy place that they all go to and they live, and it's like a theme park, like sea monkeys.
So you think that flushing a slug is not murder, right? So if you
Well, no,
just
this is how I
drop the baby
justify
into
it.
the lake, that's not murder.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. There's a sea monkey place down there for babies.
It's a shuttle to the theme park. Yeah.
The sea monkey theme park.
Yeah, no, that's just my way of like, justifying out and out murder.
Well, I've been told, don't lick a slug. This came up at work last week, that one woman said that she once I don't know if it was a dare, but slugs have something that numb your nerves. So she licked a slug. Why? I would never do that in 1,000 years. She licked a slug and it did numb her tongue, but then somebody else said, you're lucky you didn't die. They have these weird parasites that can actually kill you. So
Whoa.
don't lick a
Okay.
slug. Do not lick
I'm
a slug.
convinced. No slug licking. Not for me.
Okay, so now why would we want to lick a slug? Okay, so let's just hypothetically.
Yeah.
Amy, why would you lick a slug?
Well, if I had overheard that there was like some sort of hallucinogenic property, of course. Yeah.
Fair, because I would lick a toad for that.
There you go.
How about you, Colleen? Can you think of a reason that would justify licking a toad? Now I'm going to say toad, but slug.
Or a tug. Let's lick a tug
A
instead.
slug. I already licked one just now. I do have the numb tongue.
I think I'd rather lick a tug than a slug, but if I had to lick a slug, well, I would lick a slug first if I knew it was kind of not going to kill me for like, I don't think $1 million is enough to lick a slug, maybe five.
Yeah, enough parasites. Oh, I had another one. Okay, so like, what if it was a banana slug and you thought they were banana flavored, but not actual banana flavored, like banana candy flavored that doesn't taste like banana at all? That might be for someone a reason, not for me, because I'll just go get some Laffy Taffy or something.
Yeah, well, okay, a candy flavored banana slug, maybe, but like they're still slimy, like they leave slime trails, which you can't like slugs have properties that they're using in medicine because of the way they can adhere to things, and their slime trails do, like they're actually studying like the adhesive properties of slugs. And I actually ended up with a slug in my living room a couple years ago. I was like on my couch where I often write, and I'm going like, why is there a slime trail across my carpet? And I live on the second floor of a walk-up. So I'm looking, and then I finally found the slug, and he was about 3 inches long. And I was like, what the hell? I actually measured it. So that's how I knew. I finally figured out, like, because I was like, how could it crawl up? It would like desiccate. It doesn't have legs. And I think I had repotted a plant like a couple months before outside, and then it was like a baby nubbins of a slug. And then it just kind of grew in my plant and decided to go traveling one day.
Very happy it survived.
I didn't flush them, but I did put them out the window to desiccate on the windowsill.
But then he missed his chance to go live with all the other slugs in Sea Monkey Slug World.
Yes, and eat my plants, yes.
Oh, what a hoot.
Oh, there's so many questions I have about this.
This is great. This is good talk.
Yeah, I wonder if you could actually kill somebody. All right, and I will get off my slug obsession, but could you kill somebody? Could you murder somebody with a slug somehow, I wonder?
Well, supposedly a good slug deterrent for slugs is to take a bunch of slugs and puree them in your blender and then spread the slug juice around, which is like so disgusting. I'd have a blender that I never use again.
Just the slug blender, yeah.
Just the slug blender. But I'm wondering if you could make, like there's all those weird kind of health smoothies that maybe you could disguise slug juice, and I don't know if that would do it. I'd have to invest.
Maybe.
Oh. And
If you have enough parasites.
Yeah.
6 months later, we're going to be like, 6 months later from now, we're going to be like, how did this slug drinking TikTok challenge start? Who the hell would think of that?
Because we're just that viral.
And I can tell you, those challenges are stupid. Not that I know by experience because I'm too smart for that, but that would be really interesting to see how many people killed themselves drinking slugs. I think that's really gross.
Yeah,
It is incredibly disgusting. And now I am super fascinated by this idea.
Yeah, this could like take all of our work in that direction, you know. It could all just
I
be like
actually
slug
lied.
poems, slug poems.
I do have a slug poem. It's a child slug poem. I've never published it. I've rarely sent it out. It's about a slug named Larry
Oh, yes.
who actually parties too much and falls into the beer and dies drunk. Because that's how you kill him. You put out a vat of beer and all the slugs will go, yummy, yummy, yummy. And they go in and they all die. And then you'd end up with this big gooey sludge that you had to get rid of. It's disgusting.
Oh,
All right, at this point, I'm going to say I apologize I should have put a slug warning on this. You know, like I'm traumatized by slug death. Okay, so if you're watching right now, this is your cue to click off if you are traumatized by slug death, because it's a theme.
it happened. Yeah, just can keep going. Sorry. It's really hard to be alive now. I triggered somebody yesterday by accident, a young person, just telling a story about a friend, like a genuine true story about a friend of mine's life. Amy, you have to say trigger warning. I'm like, I am never going to get it right on this planet. You know, everything just has like by leaps and bounds just changed. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
Can we just put out life is a trigger warning?
Yeah, I think we should make
Amen.
up t-shirts. I am the trigger warning. So just back up right now. Like,
Walking
I'll probably
trigger
say
warning.
something to horrify you. Like going back to slugs.
Well, let's not get into bugs. That's horrifying in its own way too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're celebrating. We're not celebrating Slug Month. We are celebrating National Poetry Month. And
Yay!
so Colleen is the president. I don't think I said that with enough fanfare. Let me sit up. The president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association. So basically, like, and Colleen's going to be like, oh, shut up. No, don't put this on me. But I'm going to say a poetry expert.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, far not an expert. There are so many types of poems out there. And I was just interviewed, and the podcast went live last week that Brittany Hawes interviewed me. And I admitted I'm scared of sonnets. So maybe I need to do a slug sonnet.
Oh, I did warn Colleen that somehow we will all get a challenge, a poetry challenge out of this show. I think slug sonnets. I think we all need to write a slug sonnet.
Yes.
All right. So this is a tradition on the show that we come up with that weird thing that that Amy will do next month because she actually does her homework, and she'll mention it and I'll go, oh,
Yeah, but Angela,
yeah, that's on my list.
you're kind of busy and important, and I am like flitting through life writing banana cream pie sonnets and such. So yeah,
that sounds like
okay.
the dream.
I'm living my role as it has been given to me. That's all I can do.
Yeah, I would say I'm not an expert, but I have been writing poetry a long time and exploring some forms and want to explore more. So not an expert, but I guess somewhat educated in poetry.
Just a little bit of an expert, we'll say.
Yeah, like, a certain percentage.
If you go to the blog, which is linked in this description, because for season 2, I am freaking organized, people. It will probably last to the end of this show. So enjoy it while you got it. But if you go to the link in this description, you will find a link to an interview with Colleen, which goes into a lot more detail. So I don't want to hash that over word by word, but tell us while we're watching, like how poetry and why poetry? Like, how did you get started? Like, what was your defining moment?
I don't know. Defining moment might be hard to tell. I started writing poetry when I was 11, 12, because, well, I think it's when kids start to get in their teenage years, we question our place in the world, our existence, things like that. We start to, I don't know, I guess kids live very much in the moment. As we get older, sometimes we live in the future, sometimes we live in the past. So I think you know, and I had a pretty traumatic childhood. We had terrible parents, and there was a lot of abuse. And so it was one way for me to just kind of explore beyond myself and start to, I guess, question the world and maybe deal. I didn't, I didn't quite at that point in my teen years start to deal with it, but in my early 20s, I moved to Vancouver, and my father sexually abused me and my sister. So that was, you know, it leaves its scars in various ways. And it was the time when the comic book companies, and I worked in a comic book and science fiction bookstore, and they were putting out these free little, you know, Superman or Spider-Man comics for kids that were saying, just say no. If somebody wants to touch you and you're not comfortable, just say no. And I worked in this market down on what's called Granville Island in Vancouver. It's got shops, funky shops, bakeries, restaurants. There's the waters right there. It's very pretty, super expensive produce market. But so I was in this kids only market, and there were other shops, and it was slow during the week. And it was usually all the stores were, you know, the staff were usually young women. And because these comics were sitting there, I had other women coming up to me and going, yeah, I was sexually abused. Yeah, I was sexually abused. And it was so prevalent that it started to bring stuff up for me. So I did write a suite of taboo sexual abuse poems that dealt with my feeling about it. And I can tell, I'm actually getting a bit emotional right now because, you know, it affected my life. It affected my sister's life. It imprints you. Anything done to people when they're children imprints them, whether good or bad. So, you know, I speak out about it because to continue to be silent, I feel, just helps perpetrate the abuse against women. And my first poetry collection is all poems. It's called I Dreamed a World. So somehow I have dreams in both of my titles, but it's all from the female perspective. And sometimes it's giving voice, like in the myths, Leda and the Swan. Leda just gets raped by Zeus in the swan form, you know, things like that.
Yeah,
So
and that's okay because he's a god.
yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like, oh well, men are gods. And so I do speak out against such things because you know, while it's, I can usually divorce myself from feeling too much emotion when I talk about it. I got into a little more detail here, and I guess that, you know, it has made me a little more emotional. But I think it's important because, you know, women are not possessions. They're not toys. They're not to be used. And this is still happening in countries where women are completely controlled by men. You know, it's like all we have to do is look at you know, places where women used to have rights, and you know, they have no rights anymore. They're veiled. They aren't allowed to go to school. They're not allowed to work. And so, you know, I think we have to continue to speak out about this in any way we can. It's like, it's the only way I can do something against it.
Yeah. And therefore, probably, I'm assuming, put healing into your own life because
Yes,
it alleviates that helplessness.
yeah. And you know, I think people heal in different ways, and sometimes they don't heal. Sometimes they live in the wound constantly. And it was the way that I had to deal with it when it kind of bubbled to the surface in my life. And, you know, I've done a lot of various types of counseling throughout my life, which, you know, my doctor once said, you know, she said, I think everyone can benefit from counseling because, you know, it's just like, how do we perceive the world? How do people perceive us? How are we, how do we communicate with others? And, you know, we all have our own little weird, interesting glitches and things in our lives that just make us, not always that we can communicate to each other, hence why we have wars and fights and divorces and all that fun stuff. So yeah, it's, you know, it is something that I did do a fair amount of work on. And I think that overall I'm fairly mentally healthy. I may be insane, but I'm healthy.
I would agree with that. I mean, I know you as a healthy, crazy person. I mean, but I identify as a healthy, crazy person. So
Yeah.
I think I've said high functioning crazy, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy in
Yeah.
a good way, not in an axe wielding murderer way.
As long as nobody gets hurt but slugs, we're all
Yeah.
good. How about you, Amy? Do you have anything to add to that, or do you want to talk about like why you started writing poetry? I'm going to skip that question because I actually don't remember. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, but no, I absolutely agree with Colleen. I did not experience what she has experienced, but absolutely, I know my husband's a therapist, and he used to tell me before I knew, he'd say it would curl your hair to know how many people deal with this, and it's what it needs. What is needed is awareness, at least, and to start with. So, how I started writing poetry, I believe I've told Angela the story about when I was 10 and I was at school, and we had this once a week program that we would go to where we had some creative writing and we had some literature and some computer science. It was the 80s, so that was a big deal. And I was in this class with this creative writing teacher named Mrs. Reed, who was really sweet and cuddly, and everybody loved her. But then the next year she was gone. And we were like, oh no, she was like our favorite teacher at this thing. And this other woman was there, and her name was Ms. Bruns. And she was kind of like, big and lumpy and kind of sarcastic. And I was very intimidated by sarcasm. I've always been intimidated by sarcasm. Don't use it against me, please. I'm 48 now. I can kind of handle it a lot better. But anyway, Ms. Bruns, on the closest day to Halloween or something, read us The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, which I couldn't stand it. It was so cool. I was like, I've never thought, like, that is so scary. I just kept thinking about it, and I told my parents, and my dad studied English, and I don't remember if he got a master's degree or if he was just short, but if he didn't get his master's in English, he was like a credit or two short. But anyway, I don't know why that happened. My sister was born or something. But anyway,
Sure, blame the
so
sister.
I was like 10, and he's given me these books of his college books, because there's Edgar Allan Poe stuff in there, and that's where I found The Raven and the rhymes of it, but also the creepiness of it. And then I told you last week that I got into the romantics and their sing-song, breathless, woo, steamy writing and stuff when I was in high school. And so, of course, when I was in high school, I started writing poetry just because I was so boy crazy, and just because I was so Dead Poet crazy, and saw Dead Poet Society in 9th grade, like I don't know how many times at the theater. And so that's what got me started. Haven't stopped.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. Well, speaking of poetry, I just looked at the time. I was like, holy shit, we've talked about slugs so much. We need to read some poetry, because this is actually Poetry Month, and Colleen has a new book out, and I know you have poems to read. Somebody submitted poems, right? Somebody always submits poems.
Oh, for this, gosh, I only have one of mine. Nobody has sent me any, unless it has been a really busy 3 or 4 days. It's possible. I apologize if you sent me poetry and I didn't see it. Anybody out there, Pete or Jim or Nina? Those are our big three.
But there will be other shows, so
yeah.
we'll catch up on it. But
we will.
Yes. Yeah. We've talked about slugs for a long time, I think. I just looked at the thing and I was like, oh, wow.
It was so amazing. Yeah.
I know they are. But Colleen Anderson is releasing her book, The Lore of Inscrutable Dreams. It's coming out. That publisher that she has sucks. I want to say they said June. Didn't they say June? Pretty sure they said June. So, but would you like to read some of your poetry? And also, I want to find out about that title a little bit, like just a little, like, how did this collection come about? Like the title, what inspired it? Because it's a pretty unique collection of poetry. Very, I'm going to say like fantasy heavy. So when we have the cover reveal at the end of this, I really tried to lean into my fantasy self. It was hard. Mermaids died, but I think I got it. There's no blood in that trailer. So
thumbs up.
So, well, the collection has 3 kind of sections in it. There's the tarot poems that were written based off of each of the major arcana cards, which mostly are some of the oldest poems I've written, like as a adult, not as a teenager. So those ones some of those nobody wants to see. And then there's a short little group of Oz poems on the Wizard of Oz. And then the majority of the poems are the Inscrutable Dreams poems, where we have a lot of poems and stories about mythical beings, magical beings. And I wanted to write, they often have tools. Saints have tools, all the saints. Catherine's shown with her wheel. They're always shown with their symbol of torture. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But I just kind of wanted to look at the tools that are used. Excuse me, I have hair in my mouth. And, so it's like the mermaid's comb, the magic mirror, the tooth fairy's pouch where he keeps all his teeth. And so that's kind of how this one came about. And I started actually writing it when I was in Spain traveling. And I always take a blank book and I write down ideas. And I always have something on me in case I'm sitting anywhere. And I started writing out the kernels of a lot of these, like what kind of magical objects are there? So I have not read any of these previously today, so it means I might get mumble-mouthed and trip over them, but let's see what I can do. This one is the singing harp. And of course, because the technology's in its own little issue.
I think technology hates Poetry Month.
I
feel-
don't know
think
why
so.
my tablet's acting up. It doesn't want to let me scroll.
I'm going to say it's because of today.
Yeah, it is. It's poetry hater.
It's April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see if I can get to the second page. The singing harp. Once the greatest musical implement passed from gods to Taliesin, strings each representing the harmony of the spheres, singing a melody that drew angels near. Taliesin passed on to Avalon, as mystical bards ever do. The harp fell into the hands of giants, of old furbolgs hidden in lofty realms, until a jackanapes climbed the stalk of a humble being bent on adventure and stole what rightfully was never his. The harp again tumbled, its exalted position ethereal glow tarnished, on touching earth in mud and silt. Then a vibration likened to the tremor before the world began traversed the space of air housed within each man and woman. I cannot get this thing to scroll. Oh, I might have to switch to my, can't do my computer because it's propping up my phone. Rage, hang on, pause. Goodness gracious. Rage quivered its taut strings, enticing people to hear its tale. The maltreatment throughout the ages soured the notes within its captive spirit. Yet melodies played the edge of sound where it cut the world apart, filleted the song into small parcels, notes to transport one into darker reaches. While the harp was handled with deft fingers, in turn, it played the crowds, its skill a chord that stings as the song slices deep, a note that lofts as gentle as a dandelion puff, a tone that burrows, leaving an indelible mark like the first time one truly made love. The harp's revenge as a misused servant, a song that sets the world to thrumming, a hymn that brings an exhalation of wind, an aria of death, as the strings cut profoundly through the chords of every throat, severing the voices of those who would call supplications to heaven's uncaring host, silencing each joy before it was spoken. And can I get the last verse, please? Oh my God. Oh, there we go. Quietude fell, as did hundreds of bodies, the harp left alone as caution's tales flew. A curse for any would-be listeners. Musicians remained beyond sound's perimeter, its strings muted by solitude as fairy tales grew in the world beyond, decades fluttering by, until Taliesin's instrument forgot its anger, its purpose, and settled mute forever.
Oh, wow.
Good Lord. If I'm going to read another one, I'm going to get one that's a one pager because this is like good. I don't know, like technology is not my friend today. It is April Fool's Day, right?
It is April Fool's, and Amy actually got kicked out of the studio. So this is just, yeah, technology does not apparently like Poetry Month. So boo
No.
on you, technology, though, like, we love you, don't go away. Just work better.
Goodness, if all my, yeah, it's like my touch feature is dying on my tablet. All my technology is dying.
It is truly the apocalypse. I did, speaking of tarot, drew the apocalypse card, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay, here's Baba Yaga's hut. It's just past a page, so hopefully, oh, I think I got it all on one page. Baba Yaga's hut. Masked in weathered tears, Baba Yaga haunts the streets as well as lonely parks where children shouldn't wander and vagrants never linger. The chicken-footed hut, disguised as her cart, wobbles to and fro. The disembodied clucking, cloaked by creaky wheels. It's time to find a meal, fill the belly and the larder. Baba Yaga lures children, promises a wild buggy ride once they accept her crone-curved back, her cackle, candies in the palm. They ignore the price of broken rules. One spin behind the shade-draped bushes where she wrenches tender limbs, cracks green bones, sucks the marrow, smothered by grumbling traffic. The world drowns their screams. She stores the meaty joints, peruses recipes for savory stews, as her hut becomes a tesseract, dark inclinations, fungal blooms within. Bent on roaming, ever gathering stock, prisoners seasick secure, they won't escape. The laden foot stabilizes, her lodging sated, roosting until Baba Yaga prowls again, her hut stalking as it follows.
I love
Beware, little
Baba
children,
Yaga.
do not go into parks alone.
Oh, I was going to encourage that, like, or do, but no, I don't encourage that. I will not flush you down the toilet and expect you to be going off into happy land.
Yeah. All right. We might only have 2 poems because, good God, like, maybe it's my fingers. Maybe my fingers are the bad technology. I don't know. Not all the poems are that dark. I have a friend who bought, I think, my short fiction collection, and she's a being of light. She's an angel on earth. And so she was, I think, a little traumatized by it. And so when she bought the poetry collection, she was like, is it all going to be so dark and horrible? And I went, no, there are poems that are lighter and brighter.
Yeah, usually because somebody's on fire, but
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm trying to find a short poem just because this is. Here. Oh, Gargoyles. Gargoyles came out in the Gargoylecon by Frank Kaufman, edited by Frank Kaufman. So this one is just a page, which means I can see it. Glowers deter aerial attacks, protect edifices, and dare the devil's notice. The granite beast's rocky present wards, places of worship, parapets, and roofs, as devotedly plain as a gargoyle, is grotesquely intricate. Redoubtable soldiers, ever vigilant, accustomed to nature's onslaught, to spout water from any castle or church, they serve as decoration and defense, stalwart judges to misdeeds. Gargoyles look out upon the world, guarding, gazing past the far horizon. For whatever force may descend, it is sure to be forged by strong wills of gods, devils, or determined men. When called to duty, the gargoyle launches, yet its demonic roots work against it. Talons dig into buildings, gouge and scar crumbling masonry, and faulty mortaring begin to yield where the battles never breached. To shield humanity's constructs is a lofty goal, yet gradual deterioration and disrepair erodes the stone monster's reason to be. Walls and gargoyles crumble to ruin, succumb to time, one enemy neither can defeat. Yay, entropy!
that always makes me happy. Which is why Amy and I have to team up. So we have the light, happy joy with the, yeah, but then at the end, there's always the same result, unless you can find a vampire to be
There
your
you
BF.
go. We haven't talked about you being a vampire yet.
No. And I'm going to deny that because, you know, I'm in the sunlight right now, kind of, in my house. But we are looking at beds. We're getting a new bed because we're having a house guest, which is Colleen, very soon. And so we're looking at like new beds and stuff because we want you to be super comfortable while you're here. And here they have these beds that the box spring opens up like, and so well, you can store stuff in it, which I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense.
No kidding.
So we're getting black leather ones so that it'll look like our coffins under there. Pretty sure the neighbors already think we're vampires because we sleep all day. I mean, well, we don't sleep all day, but we sleep very late. And Brazil is a very early population. They like the whole rooster crowing thing. Rooster crowing to us means go to bed soon, in about 2 hours.
Well, and that's true. And you could have just like beds for guests, right? Beds for guests, but you're actually sleeping under the bed in your little coffin and they don't know it. And then you come out at night and that was my sister calling.
Well, in the middle of the night, then while you're here, Colleen, you might hear like on the bottom of your bed. That's just me.
As long as it's not slugs.
I was
Or
going to say
vampires.
when you said you had the hair in your mouth, I was going to say, well, that's why you don't have plushy banana slugs. I mean, but I'm going to say
Amen.
it is about time for us to end the show and give into technology that technology does not like us today.
I mean, if you're gonna
But-
lick a slug, you don't want it to be one of those fleshy, hairy.
Exactly. And I'm going to say to technology, fuck you, technology. We're still going to do this. But tell me everywhere that we can find you and your work. And of course, go to the link in the description and you'll find
you
Colleen's
don't.
interview.
Uh-oh.
I think you lost Amy. She's frozen.
That's right. That's right, we are.
Frozen in time. All right, where can you find me? Very much on my list of to-dos is to update my very sad blog, as Angela knows, because she was like, oh, you published over 170 poems. I went, no, it's over 300. So, which is ColleenAnderson.wordpress.com. So now I'm really embarrassed and I need to really update it. Also, my first book of poetry, I Dreamed a World, is on Amazon or through LVP Publications. And my collection, A Body of Work, with my creepy little baby on the cover, is through Black Shuck Books, which is in the UK, or also on Amazon. Where else can you find me? Well, you can, if you want to talk about poetry or the Poetry Association, you can look up the SFPA, and the president's email is there, and you can say, hey, I want to be a member. Well, there's even like more direct than going through me to be a member of the SFPA, which we do a lot of cool things. We have contests, we have awards, and we're going to be announcing a new award very soon. It's been top secret, so I'm not going to say more.
Ooh, but I'm going to like go poke you and try to get this information later. I'm like, what? What is it?
Yeah. So I'm quite excited about that. So where can you find me? I'll be at StokerCon in June in Pittsburgh. After being in Brazil, you'll be able to find me in June in Brazil with Angela, where we will probably get up to some really fun shenanigans to do with writing.
Yes, I think, what did we say? We might try to do like a little show of our own, Poets Gone Wild.
That's right.
Brazil.
Poets Gone Wild on the streets of Rio do Sul.
Yes, there might be toplessness. I'm going to say that because we will probably not be wearing hats.
Oh, and I
Technically, that's
maybe
topless.
we have Ryan along so he could take off his shirt.
Exactly. I'm okay with that. All right. thank you for being on the show, Colleen. Thank you for being such a good sport with all the crazy technology issues that we have had today that have plagued us. Technology, you will not stop Poetry Month 2023. We will prevail. We're poets. We don't need a lot to live on. So we're like kind of like slugs. You might find us on the second floor, half decimated, but we're still going to be there crawling along, leaving our slime trails of verse behind us. So,
thank you, Angela and Amy, too. Thank you very much for doing this. This has been a lot of fun.
It usually is. We're not like super serious. So on the whole, maybe prestige thing, we're not great, but we do have a lot of fun. And I am going to close the show with the cover reveal and a banana slug. This is Colleen's book, The Lore of Inscrutable Dreams. It is coming out soon. I'm thinking June. We had this discussion. This is no fault of Colleen's. This is all on her publisher, which might be me. And we all know about me. But yes, thank you for being on the show. Thank you, Amy, even though you're frozen. And that has been like a very cool like art installment on the side for like the last little end of this. I'm happy that we did this. I always have fun. And I will see viewers, we'll see you next Saturday where we have Kyle Toucher. And we're going to be talking about his new book, Live Wire. And this Wednesday, I don't know, but we're going to do something. I forgot. So this is Colleen's cover, and I will see you guys next time so we can exercise our rights.
Bye.
Bye.